I wanted to cover the topic of Lucy Connolly in a little bit of depth. I've got a video here for you from GB News where they're going to provide the debate material, if you like, the normal back and forth that happens between left and right, because this is a very polarising issue, but as ever, you either fall on one side or the other. And so I'll play this little clip for you, and I'll give you my thoughts afterwards on how I feel about it.
Well, I think the context of Lucy Connolly's charge and prosecution is important, which is that this happened at a time where there was an immensely difficult political climate. You know, there was violence outbreaking on our streets, there was misinformation being spread online. And we know that when one of the reasons why the charges and the sentencing was so rapid and so harsh was because this was a way of deterring other people from joining in on spreading in misinformation, trying to whip people up into a frenzy and stopping the violence from consuming the communities, which it did across the country. So this was a response to that. And I don't think we should underplay what Lucy said. You know, she called for mass deportation. She said she called for the setting fire of the hotels with asylum seekers in there.
That's the only line that people are angry about. Mass deportations. Mass deportations is being normalised across the whole of the West, because if you've got someone who is illegal here, if you've got someone who's illegal or has failed asylum, shouldn't we be deporting
setting
them?
Fire to hotels full of asylum seekers.
Line.
But that is an extremely violent line. I mean, that is, and what actually happened? You know, what did we actually see?
Don't even try and go down that. People trying to set fire to hotels because the evidence was not there.
Well, I'm saying
they set fire to a bin. A bin was the only evidence they had.
Okay. People were trying to get in a hotel full of asylum seekers, people who were angry and aggressive and violent, OK? This was a frightening time across the country. And I think what happened here, yes, these sentences were harsh, but they did prevent violence from spreading. People did stop joining in these riots. And I think it had an important effect. Otherwise, we would have seen more violence on our streets. We would have seen more descending into chaos. You know, I'm sorry about Lucy's personal circumstances, but the judge did take those into account. And deemed that they, you know, in the context of what she said, they actually didn't have an effect on her sentencing. It seems harsh, but it was important at the time to come down harshly on people who were saying these kind of things.
Of serious abuse, which we've seen people being released. We've seen serious criminal cases related to drug-related matters, not just minor drug-related matters, fighting violence. All of those people are being released a lot earlier than someone who did this.
I don't think anybody who's gone to jail for a violent crime and still poses a risk to the public should come out early. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. But, you know, this is also a result of overcrowded prisons, very harsh sentences of people
and therein lies the point. The point is that they're picking and choosing which people can go out, and they're saying they're not related to the issue of the day that we're concerned about, which is the Lucy Connolly tweet. She is persona non grata on that point, but we'll let out the criminal who stabbed someone in the face, just because we need to have the prison spaces. My personal view is you stab someone in the face and you can't go back into
I think both should serve long sentences. I do. I think, you know, the prisons are a total mess, and the fact that we have to, you know, we are even considering having to let out violent criminals early is a travesty and a condemnation of the mess that our justice system has been let in.
When people are doing an analysis of criminal activity, it's very easy to get drawn into the detail and then debate the full letter of the law, like this is the letter of the law and these are the sentencing guidelines. However, it also needs to be looked at that there are a huge amount of people that do unspeakably bad things who have had way less sentences than Lucy Connolly had. At the time, there was a lot of stuff going on. There were riots, temperature was high, and Keir Starmer wanted to stamp his foot down and show that you're not to riot in his country. In his new role, he wanted to show his power, and indeed, he promised that these people would be punished. That's quite a strange thing. And here's that clip of Keir Starmer doing that.
Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee You will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
So, what was the reason why Lucy Connolly was so triggered? Well, what had happened in 2011, they had their firstborn child, herself and her husband Ray, and Harry, that firstborn, was aged 19 months. And after multiple hospital visits, Lucy was pleading to put this toddler, and the toddler was apparently quite listless at the time, on a drip, and she begged the doctor at the hospital to put the toddler on a drip and keep them in, and the NHS refused. So the Connollys then took their baby home and they laid him in a cot, and at 4 a.m. they woke up to find that his body was lifeless and dead. Now, the husband attempted to do CPR while she called an ambulance, but as he put it, rigor mortis had already set in, and the horror of that moment will never ever be extinguished. Now, if you've ever had children, you know what it's like. You care for children, you look after them, they become your world. And when they're tiny little babies, they're oh so very special. They are special things. And what's the chances of it happening to you? So to have something happen, especially to a mother, because mothers feel it on a far more visceral level. And don't get me wrong, fathers love their kids, I love my kids, and when they're babies, of course, they're special, and they just bring joy and happiness whenever you're around them. But for a mother, it's different. The baby was connected to the mother. There's some mystical bond there that can't really be described with words. So you can understand that when Lucy was suffering, as all parents do, you know, it's been said that you're never ever going to get over the death of your child. If your child dies, you know, if you're going to bury your child, your life's never going to be the same ever again. A parent is not supposed to bury their children, because after that point, your life will never reach the same peak that it has. You are just going to get through after that point. And I think that's pretty obvious. And so what had happened when Lucy Connolly was looking at what's been happening here in Southport, Lucy Connolly, upon observing and knowing this, she was immediately taken back. She went on the internet, put it on, had a chill out and thought, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. And the end of all that, she was sentenced to 31 months in prison. She's been made an example of, and whatever you may think of Lucy Connolly, she doesn't deserve to be in prison. She didn't even deserve to go away for one day. They should have looked at those reports, looked at her life and said, you know what, at the end of the day, it was just a post, and you know what else? Nobody died as a result of it. There were no crimes resulted from the post. Yes, it was despicable. Yes, it's a hateful and deeply offensive tweet. Without doubt, and it's not something I would have done. But then I'm not suffering from PTSD. I didn't lose a child in 2011 in the way that she did. She didn't just lose a child. The NHS dropped the ball, and as a result, she lost her child. And so for this judiciary and this government to keep her in only goes to show that the judges in this country are activist judges, and we need a shake-up of how that works. It's, you know, beyond comprehension that Lucy Connolly wasn't let out. She should have definitely been let out the other day. But no, what did they do? They doubled down, because that's what the judges do. But of course, as we know, judges are quite happy to let everybody else off. It's a sickening state of affairs, and it's a disgusting indictment of this government and our judicial system that this lady is still in prison, in my opinion. Thanks very much for your time.